For more on the election outcome and the mood in the Hungarian capital this morning, we can go now straight to Budapest and bring in our EU news editor, Maria Tadeo, who's on a boat on the Danube. Maria, these elections are being closely watched all across the world, from DC to Moscow. Just tell us, what are the ramifications?
Well, yes, Maeve, and that is now the question this Monday morning, because yesterday night it was the celebration when it comes to Peter Magyar, Tisza and his supporters. Many Hungarians taken to the streets saying this was a moment they had waiting now for 16 years, putting an end to the uninterrupted rule of Viktor Orbán. But on the Monday morning is a reality that now begins to hit, as well as the challenges ahead for the new Hungarian government. Peter Magyar himself said it. This is a moment where the nation will have to reconcile after years of deep division, but it's also a moment in which it will have to come to terms with the task ahead, which he said will be, quote, enormous. As you alluded to, this was an election very much followed in Brussels. Brussels welcoming the news, but also very clear-eyed that the challenges are very big. They are important. The government says it wants to get to work as soon as possible. The incoming government, of course, that is. And they want to unlock billions of EU funds for Hungary. But that will not be easy, and it can certainly not happen overnight without reforms. When you look at the United States, the whole power of the U.S. administration and endorsement from President Trump, who now loses his biggest ally in Europe, J.D. Vance, coming to this country a week before saying anything for Viktor Orbán, had no impact whatsoever on the polls. Peter Magyar had a massive landslide, which in principle could now help him to fast-track those reforms. And we see repeatedly the MAGA message, when put to the vote in Europe, simply does not resonate. And not only does not resonate, it is rejected by European voters. And then secondly, of course, is Russia. We had seen for the past 3 years Russia using Hungary to put forward some of their diplomatic positions when it comes to no money for Ukraine, no weapons for Ukraine, the sanctions, of course, those leaked tapes, which turned into a scandal between the former Hungarian foreign minister and Sergei Lavrov. The Russian foreign minister will now see that they will encounter a government, a new government, that takes pride in saying Russians go home. And that was one of the chants that we heard yesterday from many Hungarians who all repeated they wanted change, but also they believe this connection with Russia had ultimately been detrimental to the country's reputation within the EU and NATO.
Peter Magyar, of course, will face some major challenges now, an uphill battle. Just very briefly, what will be his priority, Maria?
Yeah, Maven, yesterday he laid out the roadmap. He will go to Poland, then he will head to Vienna, and then ultimately Brussels. And that is the big one and the most difficult. Two major issues now facing Hungary. One is the frozen funds. We know there's billions at stake, more than 17 billion euros that the country has not received because of major issues when it comes to rule of law. If he wants the money, he will have to push forward reforms. That is not easy. The result helps him because he has a mega majority in the parliament. But of course, this is not something, as I say, that can happen overnight. And then secondly, it's the question of energy. Until now, this is a country that has been running on cheap Russian oil. Can he unplug and disconnect? Can he do that without major repercussions for the economy? Is there a roadmap to unplug from Russia? Those are the two major points at this stage. How to rebuild relationships in the EU, tap into the money quickly enough for his government to get a boost. And then thirdly, the Russian energy question. And that is by no means a small question.
OK, Maria Tadeo, Euronews' EU editor. Thank you so much for that very comprehensive live update there from Budapest.